Mary, at an indoor, mostly maskless holiday party at the White House Tuesday night, Trump floated the idea of a 2024 run. He said, "I'll see you in 4 years." Do you think this is something he's seriously considering, or was he talking about being on Dancing with the Stars?
Well, that's something I really don't want to see. But I guess I'd rather see that than a 2024 run. Awful choice.
That's a very low bar.
Yeah, it is indeed. I think it's preposterous. I think that this initially was probably an idea that was floated to him in order to assuage his wounded ego after he so decisively lost to President Biden. And I think it's something he clings to as a way to maintain his relevance, which I suggested earlier is going to wane precipitously after the inauguration. And I think it's a way to keep himself at the center of things. My hope is that the media doesn't fall for this nonsense. There are several reasons Donald won't run. One of them, and perhaps the most important, is that he may be facing some serious charges at the state level. Plus, there are some lawsuits that he will have to grapple with, and of course, there is his financial exposure. So, I don't see that happening.
Well, even though Trump has lost the election, he has, in my view, transformed the GOP in so many ways. Do you think that he'll remain a vocal force in the political world? What do you think his next career move is after he leaves the White House? A TV channel? Is he going to want to cash in on all of this?
I think the problem is that he hasn't transformed the GOP as much as he's revealed its true nature. So I don't see the party changing anytime soon, which is a tragedy for all of us. So Donald will absolutely try to maintain control because that will give him continue to give him some measure of power. I think he's much more likely to pursue something in the media, though. That way he can keep the spotlight trained on him at all times and just narrow his focus to his most fanatical followers.
Mary, you've been very vocal about the administration's response to the coronavirus pandemic, which you say is horrible because of the way this president sees illness. What did you mean by that?
In my family, weakness was considered like the worst possible thing. So, most people did anything they could in order to pretend that they were strong, no matter what was going on. And by weakness, I don't just mean weakness of character. I mean, being sick made you weak. Having something like alcoholism, which was my dad's problem, made you weak. So Donald can't bear to be associated with any kind of illness because he thinks that in turn makes him look weak. So he had to downplay it from the very beginning. He's still downplaying it. And, we just look at the way he kind of politicized mask wearing. People who wear masks are somehow lightweights. They're not tough enough to face down this invisible virus, it's not just absurd, it's dangerous beyond comprehension. As you guys pointed out earlier, over almost 3,000 Americans died yesterday. This is beyond comprehension, and it's only going to get worse. So we need to start wrapping our heads around that one. So again, it's really, it's not just Donald, although honestly, if from the very beginning he had said wear a mask and had worn one himself, hundreds of thousands of people would survive. But it's also GOP leadership who's just following his lead and continuing to do absolutely nothing.
So, Mary, you announced recently that you're going to be writing a second book about America's trauma. Can you tell us a little bit more about this?
Yeah, obviously we've all experienced the stress and trauma of COVID-19, whether it was just through the fear of it or the economic hardship that has hit us. A lot of us, of course, disproportionately, just as the virus has affected certain vulnerable populations disproportionately. So I actually start with the history of this country. This country was born in trauma. the twin traumas of the genocide against the native population and the genocide of Africans, the enslavement of African Americans for 400 years. And these are traumas that we not only haven't atoned for, we haven't barely acknowledged them. So by failing to hold people accountable for the horrors inflicted upon a certain populations historically, we have become a country that is vulnerable to people like Donald. So I kind of take a broad view, but then I narrow my focus on the coming mental health crisis that's going to be facing us once we get through COVID-19.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
You have a
Interesting.
follow-up?
Oh, but just, I don't have a follow-up. You're a shrink, and I have a shrink question for you. And I know you haven't had him on the couch, but in your opinion, is the guy crazy? Is he crazy?
That's a really technical term, so I'm not entirely sure how to answer the question. Let's put it this way.
You know what I mean.
Serious.
Yeah.
I do indeed. He has serious psychological disorders, which, wouldn't have been of any interest to us if he had no power and if he didn't have the ability to inflict pain on other people. The biggest problem for us now is that because of those undiagnosed and untreated disorders and his appalling lack of empathy, people are dying unnecessarily every day. Children were stripped from their parents and incarcerated for no reason. So, the horrors that he's inflicted upon us with, again, the permission and enabling of the GOP makes the fact that he is, as you say, crazy, all of our problems.
That's right.
And
That's
there
right.
you have it, y'all. Many thanks to Mary Trump. Can't wait to read the next book.